I'm Vinnie Politan. The subject of my investigation, the death of Anna Kepner, an 18-year-old killed while on board a cruise ship with her blended family. Here's the story. Anna Kepner, an 18-year-old high school senior from Titusville, Florida, slipped away on what was supposed to be a joyful family cruise aboard the Carnival Horizon. Full of life, dreams of joining the U.S. Navy, and a future she'd worked so hard for, Anna seemed unstoppable. But on November 7th, tragedy struck. Her body was discovered concealed under her bed, wrapped in a blanket and covered with life vests, sending waves of shock through her tight-knit community. The FBI has launched a full investigation, scouring the ship's surveillance video, swipe card logs, and interviewing family members, including her own 16-year-old stepbrother, who's been named a suspect during an unrelated court hearing. As the world grieves, Anna's story has become a haunting riddle. What happened in that cabin, and who is responsible? This is a family tragedy, but it's also now being investigated as a homicide. So it goes beyond the family, but everything about it is about this blended family. Let's bring in a Court TV field reporter, Cody Thomas, who's been digging into all of the facts here. And excuse me, in this case, the named suspect has been this 16-year-old stepbrother. What have people been saying about the relationship between Anna Kepner and this 16-year-old stepbrother who came into her life when her dad married his mom?
Well, Vinny, we've heard varying different stories from varying different people surrounding the relationship between Anna and this 16-year-old stepbrother, and we've heard from family members as well. And important to note and remember that this is a very blended family, so the dynamics could change depending on the perspective of who we're talking about. But let's start with Anna Kepner's stepmother, Chantel Kepner. Now, in a divorce hearing held after the incident, she described the three kids who stayed in the same room. That would be Anna, the 16-year-old stepbrother, as the suspect, and one of Anna's younger stepbrothers. She said the three kids in the room on the cruise ship were described as best friends and the three amigos. Take a listen.
Anna, who we know passed away, she was 18, correct?
Correct.
And she was an adult?
Correct.
And was she given the option of staying in another room?
All three of the kids were.
Okay. And would that room have been with Grandma and Grandpa?
Correct.
And they didn't want to do that?
No, they wanted to stay together.
Did they all get along?
Yeah, the three of them are like the three amigos. They're best friends.
Now, Vinny, Anna's grandmother, her biological grandmother, a woman named Barbara Kepner, she echoed that same sentiment in an interview with ABC News. Now, one of our producers voiced some of the comments that Barbara made to ABC News. Take a listen to this.
He was an emotional mess. He couldn't even speak. He couldn't believe what had happened. They were just like brother and sister. They were two peas in a pod. I know that those two kids cared about each other in the right way. I can't accuse him because I don't know what happened in that room.
So, Vinny, these are two family members talking about the relationship between Anna and her 16-year-old stepbrother. But take a listen to Anna's ex-boyfriend who says otherwise surrounding that relationship. Take a listen.
From what you know, what do you think happened in the room?
I think that he walked in there and basically, we walked in there and tried to get on top of her and try to do a sexual thing with her, but he got caught by me in the process of it.
Think you hurt her for that?
Yeah. And she got scared of it and wanted to go sleep over with friends and whenever she could at mine, but she never could because her stepmom was there destroying of it. And I got that, but I was like, her stepbrother is trying to go on top of her in the middle of the night, you know, and they didn't believe me.
So you think this could have been prevented?
Yes, ma'am.
What type of person was she?
She was a great woman, you know. I met her at school,
And the circumstances behind her death, you find them to be suspicious? And if so, tell me why.
It was suspicious because I knew that the brother did it, and yeah.
How do you know that?
Because of the past things that happened with him, like I was saying.
Which were what?
About the FaceTime and stuff.
What's the FaceTime?
Whenever I was on FaceTime with her, and when I was on FaceTime with her, and she was laying down, and the brother tried to go on top of her, and
you saw that?
Yeah. And then,
how did she react to that?
I was like, "What the hell are you doing in the room?" You know. Then he got scared and like ran away, and I heard his footsteps like running through the house, you know, because he got caught.
So when you learned of her passing, you know, what was your reaction?
I ran away. He ran away. It was kind of crazy.
And when you learned that she passed away, how did you feel?
I felt very sad, you know, because that was my first love. She was the best that ever happened to me. And I'd even walk to her work to see her, you know, for like 5-10 minutes.
Did you talk with her before her death?
Like 3 weeks before it, yes ma'am. I was actually supposed to go on the cruise that she went on, but we broke up before that.
When did you split?
We split up like 6 months ago.
Has she ever complained about his behavior before?
Yes ma'am, yes sir.
Okay. What did she complain about?
She complained about them being uncomfortable, or her being uncomfortable around him.
What should happen next?
Thank you.
What do you think should happen?
I think that he should get thrown in jail for as long as possible. And yeah.
So Vinnie, you have family members saying they were two peas in a pod and best friends. Then you have the ex-boyfriend saying that he witnessed a stepbrother trying to essentially assault her in the past. And you know, with all these differing viewpoints from family and people outside the family, that really makes it hard for anyone to try and grasp on to what to believe here.
Yeah, complete opposite perspectives of this very important relationship. Cody's going to stick around. Thanks so much. And that brings us to the first question in our investigation tonight. Who's telling the truth about Anna and the suspect's relationship here? Right? I mean, it seems completely different perspectives. Let's bring in Tony Bruschi, true crime podcaster from Hidden Killers with Tony Bruschi. Tony, what are your thoughts here? Because these are completely different perspectives of this relationship, which seems at the end of the day is going to be what this case is all about, and is somehow connected to the death and the reason why Anna Kepner was killed.
Completely. I think when you're trying to figure out who's telling the truth in any family, you got to ask yourself who actually lived it in terms of who we're talking about, who's in question here. And Anna's the one that we're talking about. So who saw the tension that doesn't make it into the Christmas card that goes out every year? The grandparents, they're giving you their grandparent version. I do not fault them at all.
I think we lost Tony there. Did we lose Tony?
The parents are pushing the three amigos.
Yeah, Tony, we lost you there for just a moment. We lost you there for just a moment. So go ahead. You can repeat a little bit. Go ahead.
Sure. Grandparents, they're giving you their grandparent version. They see the holidays, birthday parties. They don't see the daily reality, but hopefully they see a good amount, but they see through their prism. The parents, they're going to be pushing their three amigos narrative, but how accurate is that? Is that what it really is, or is it what they want to see? They compare that then with the ex-boyfriend, who we just heard from, no custody battle, no family impact, or no image to protect, and he's saying the dynamic was not what the adults described. And then you got another testifying about chokeholds in the family. That's not a bitter outsider. That's someone who allegedly experienced it from inside the house. So I'm going with...
Yeah, let's bring in psychiatrist, forensic specialist, and medical health expert, Dr. Yalda Safai is also with us tonight. All right, Dr. Safai, what are your thoughts here? Because we're getting, the parents, grandparents' perspective, and then you get the perspective of the boyfriend. They seem to be in completely different places in describing the nature of this relationship. Who's telling the truth? Is there a way to figure that out?
Well, what a contrast. Sometimes see things through a rosy-colored lens. So it's sometimes their perspective on things might be a little bit skewed, but I think they shouldn't be taking the ex-boyfriend's testimonial at fact either. If in fact the stepbrother was harassing Anna here, she probably told other people besides the ex. So I would investigate and talk to Anna's other friends and see if she ever made similar statements to them as well. I think just taking the ex-boyfriend's testimony as fact is incorrect here. And also, like my co-panel.
All right, we're having some technical difficulties, so I think what we're going to do is our guests are going to stick around. We'll reconnect with them, but we're going to be moving on the program. Coming up next, and this is another big issue in this case. Did the sleeping arrangements on that cruise make any sense?
Was she given the option of staying in another room?
All three of the kids were.
The disappearance of mother Anna Walsh.
Her husband now charged with her murder.
All eyes on this accused killer.
Mr. Walsh was suspecting his wife of having an affair.
The massive trail of evidence.
This incredible timeline of Google searches.
It shows everything that was in his mind.
He searched how long before a body starts to smell.
The disappearance of Anna Walsh murder trial. Live coverage weekday mornings, 8, 7 Central on Court TV.
How many bedrooms is the home that you're in?
We have a 3-bedroom house with an addition room downstairs.
So what are the sleeping arrangements when all the kids were there prior to this cruise?
The 2 youngest girls shared a room, the 2 boys shared a room, and Anna had her own room.
Okay, so that's all about what was happening in the home, right? This blended family living together. So the younger girls, they shared a room. The teenage boys, 14 and 16, they shared a room, stepbrothers. And then Anna had her own room. But then they went on this cruise. Now let's bring back in Court TV field reporter Cody Thomas. So what have we heard about the sleeping arrangements on this cruise? The why of it, the where of it, the how of it?
Well, Vinny, the most important thing we know is that Anna, her 16-year-old stepbrother, who's a suspect in this case, and her 14-year-old half-brother all stayed in the same room. Now, during that same hearing that we just saw, Anna's stepmother said that all of these 3 kids had the option to stay in another room with their grandparents, but they wanted to stay together. Take a listen.
Miss Kepner, who all went on the cruise with you?
Myself, my husband, Anna, Connor, the 2 youngest girls, and then my mother-in-law and father-in-law.
What are their names?
Jeff and Barbara Kepner.
And where was their room in relationship to where your room and the children's room was?
2 floors above us.
Did they also help in the supervision of the children?
Yes, ma'am.
Anna, who we know passed away, she was 18, correct?
Correct.
And she was an adult?
Correct.
And was she given the option of staying in another room?
All 3 of the kids were.
Okay. And would that room have been with Grandma and Grandpa?
Correct.
And they didn't want to do that?
No, they wanted to stay together.
Now, Vinny, Anna's grandmother, who was on the cruise, also reiterated this in an interview with ABC News, and one of our producers voiced some of the comments that were made. Take a listen.
The 2 younger girls stayed with the parents, and the 3 teenagers, they decided amongst themselves they wanted to stay in the room together. But we had a larger room, and we made it very clear that at any time, if they weren't getting along, they didn't want to be together, we had an extra bed in our room that they could come to.
So, Vinny, let's take a look inside of one of these rooms. The I Like Cruise Ships YouTube channel did a video tour of one of the 3 passenger cabins aboard the Carnival Horizon. Now, this particular room on the ship had a set of bunk beds as well as a single twin bed. Take a look.
Welcome to the Carnival Horizon. We're going to have a look at one of the family harbor cabins. This is 2464. Now, this is kind of obviously at the back of deck 2, which is the family harbor area. And you'll see all the cabins sort of running not too far from the back of the ship. So this is kind of cool because one of the actual Pullman beds is already in place. I'm just going to get the ladder nice and straight there. So you can actually see that top bunk already prepared. So this is actually set up as a 3-person room.
So, Vinny, let's take a look at some of these still images from that video, also from the I Like Cruise Ships YouTube channel. These cabins are pretty close quarters, as we can see here. We see the 2 beds next to each other, plus the bunk bed on top. It makes you wonder how someone could have stuffed a body under that bed in the first place.
Yeah, it's tight quarters. Obviously, you're on a cruise ship. It's all tight quarters unless you spend a lot of money. Yeah, I'm looking at that. I'm wondering how do you even get under a bed in that room? And then you've got a small bathroom. That's where she would have to change. And I believe it was the travel agent who first suggested this sort of arrangement, because I'm sure this is perhaps a more common kind of dilemma, like how do we break down who sleeps where? Thanks, Cody. That brings us to the next question in our investigation, and it's about these arrangements. Did the sleeping arrangements make sense? Right? Does it make sense to put 16, 18, and a 14-year-old together, and the 16 and the 18 not related by blood? Joining me, true crime podcaster from Steph's Case Files, Stephanie Pratt is with us, and still with us, psychiatrist Dr. Yalda Safai. Great to have you here. Stephanie, what are your thoughts here? Does it make sense? And I get it, right? You're going to pay for one less room. Maybe she wants to stay with the teenagers instead of staying with grandma and grandpa. What are your thoughts?
I think it's totally inappropriate here, Vinny. As much as the grandmother and the parents want to believe that they are close best friend siblings, the fact remains that it is inappropriate, in my opinion, to put younger males with females or vice versa. I believe that what Anna was telling her boyfriend at the time is the truth that we need to follow. She was made uncomfortable. Whether she decided to tell her parents or not, they know the truth. And so I think their story of this being okay is their way to cope with the decisions that they made, and also to try to discard some of the blame that might be on them for making this decision.
Dr. Safai, what are your thoughts here? And I guess there's 2 different potential scenarios, right? Either they had no idea or nothing was happening. There was what the boyfriend is saying either wasn't true, or they didn't know about it, the parents, or as the boyfriend said, Anna was uncomfortable and he had actually told the parents about what was happening with the stepbrother. Under those 2 different scenarios, do you come to 2 different conclusions about whether or not the arrangements were appropriate?
You know, in retrospect, now that a murder has occurred, we're all looking back and saying, okay, the sleeping arrangement was inappropriate. When, if nothing happened, no murder occurred, and they concluded the cruise without any incidences, we would have not been thinking much of it. But the fact of the matter is there was no adults in that room, so there's very hard to have complete supervision over these teenagers. And as we all know, that teenagers are impulsive, they do stupid things sometimes. And I believe Anna was 18, she was an adult, but there was someone as young as 14 in that room. So putting teenagers together alone in a room without any supervision might become an issue. Now, do I think that was the reason that this murder occurred? Probably not. It might have occurred either way, whether they all slept in the same room together or not. But if I were a parent, I would split up the parents and have a parent in each room. I would have a parent with the teenagers and a parent in the other room. So I would have complete supervision, because, you know, it is a cruise ship and it's a small, you think it's safe, that there's no place for a person to go. But when in fact crimes on cruise ships happen all the time. So supervision is necessary there as well.
Yeah, the other way they could have broken it down, Stephanie, is you could have had mom with the 2 girls, dad with the 2 boys, and then grandma and grandpa would get, you know, a little time off. You know, they'd have their own little setup. That could have worked, but obviously the mom and dad wouldn't be able to share nighttime together. But, you know, it seems like that might have been an easier way to do it. What are your thoughts about the travel agent being the one suggesting it and then following the advice of the travel agent for sleeping arrangements?
Well, I think the travel agent's main goal is to make a sale and to make people feel more comfortable with the space that they are affordable to purchase. I think that's the agents. I think she says that to all the families in every situation. I don't think this is any different. What I'm hoping is that they have intense surveillance video in the hallway so that they can place the younger stepbrother in the room at the time. I believe that something happened after Anna returned from the casino, because even though she wasn't feeling well, remember, she did return with the family later at the casino. That time, the younger brother wasn't there, but he had been there at the casino earlier.
Let me ask you, Dr. Safai, the other part of this is that they all lived in the same house together. And if whatever happened here, do you think it's a result of the arrangements or something that may have inevitably happened anyway in the home that they lived in?
I believe if somebody wanted to kill Anna, if a family member wanted to harm Anna, they would have done it, whether they were on a cruise ship or at home or anywhere else. So, like I mentioned before, I don't think the sleeping arrangement was the reason why Anna was murdered, but I think the parents could have had better supervision over who's coming and going and what was going on in that cruise ship.
Big thanks to Stephanie Pratt, Steph's Case Files, and Dr. Yelda Safai. Great to have you both here. Appreciate it. Still to come, did anyone else have an opportunity to kill Anna? I'm Vinnie Politan. We continue our investigation of the death of Anna Kepner, a story that is taking on a life of its own as we learn more about Anna's blended family and the role it played in her death. Here's the story. Bright, bubbly, and full of dreams. That's how Anna Kepner's family remembers her. Before she graduated high school, she carved out a life of ambition, cheerleading, community service, and plans to join the military. But aboard a 6-day Caribbean cruise with her father and step-family, something went terribly wrong. FBI agents boarded the Carnival Horizon when it docked in Miami, and her body was found hidden under her cabin bed, exactly where Anna Kepner's relatives say she disappeared. Court hearings now reveal a shocking development. A minor family member, her 16-year-old stepbrother, is being investigated by the FBI. The investigation is shrouded in secrecy, yet the whispers are growing louder. Was this a tragic accident or something far more sinister inside a family's own walls? So the FBI is investigating this case, and we're still at a point now where we're trying to figure out what exactly happened here. Court TV field reporter Cody Thomas still with us. So let's get to the basics now. Let's get to the timeline. You know, take a look at what we know happened, when it happened, to get a better idea of the sequence of events here.
Well, Vinny, before I get to the timeline, I want to remind our viewers just the scale of this ship and remind them of when it departed, where it departed from, and all of those details. Now, this $800 million ship had a guest capacity of almost 4,000 people with almost 1,500 crew on board. And during Anna Kepner's trip, it actually departed from Miami, Florida on November 2nd for a 6-day cruise. And we all know that all of this went down on the night of November 6th. So just 4 days into what was supposed to be a 6-day cruise before they came back into the port of Miami. Now onto the timeline, Vinny. On November 6th, during dinner, Anna tells her family she is feeling ill and goes back to her cabin. Anna's 14-year-old brother and 16-year-old stepbrother, who were also staying in the same cabin, returned to the room a little later. Anna's 14-year-old brother changes clothes and leaves the cabin to take pictures of the cruise ship. The 14-year-old returns and notices Anna is not in bed, but he presumes she is staying up late with the grown-ups. Now we fast forward to the next day, November 7th. The 14-year-old and 16-year-old boys head to breakfast with the rest of the family. Anna doesn't join them for breakfast, and the family realizes she is missing. Anna's father, Christopher Kepner, begins searching the horizon. A medical emergency is announced over the PA system. Then Christopher goes to Anna's cabin where the cleaning crew had just discovered her body crammed under the bed. And Vinnie, one more thing I want to point out. The grandmother has since said that Anna came back out of the cabin following that initial return when she was feeling sick. She came back out to go gamble for a little bit before coming back to the cabin to stay the night, and when all of this ultimately happened. And of course, we know something tragic happened in that room that left her dead that night of November 6th.
Yeah, and the comings and goings there, right? You have, at some point, the 14-year-old brother coming back. At least that's the way it's been reported. Coming back, and she's not there, but his stepbrother is. All right, that brings us to the next question in our investigation. And you look at motive, we don't know about that, but how about opportunity? Did anyone else have an opportunity to kill Anna? It seems from the timeline that the 16-year-old stepbrother does, because there appears to be a gap of time when he is in the room and his 14-year-old brother is not. Joining me, Tony Bruschi, true crime podcaster from Hidden Killers with Tony Bruschi, and retired FBI Special Agent Kenneth Gray. Tony, I'll begin with you. As we look at this timeline and the comings and goings, it's crucial. She goes back first by herself, but then at some point leaves to go gambling and then returns a second time. Is there anything in this timeline, as you think about it and look at it, that would give anyone else an opportunity to take Anna's life?
It's very, very difficult to see that window. We're talking about a cruise ship, a locked cabin, middle of the ocean, middle of the night, not an open city block where there's thousands of entry points here. I mean, could someone else have done this? Technically, I mean, anything is possible, but probable? That's a very different question. This wasn't a robbery. Nothing was taken. This wasn't a random stranger who accessed a locked cabin, committed a murder, and then vanished on a floating vessel with cameras everywhere and nowhere to go. The cruise ship log key card access, that's going to be crucial, and the FBI has had time now to look at that. And I would guess if there was some other mysterious third party, we'd probably know by now. Instead, we got that confined space, a small group with access, one person with accusations of aggressive behavior towards the victim. The list of people who could have been in that cabin at that time are very short.
Kenneth Gray, your former colleagues from the FBI investigating this case, your thoughts about the timeline. Is there anyone else that would have an opportunity to get in that room, or perhaps kill her outside the room and bring her into the room? I don't know. What are your thoughts?
So, Vinnie, there was a report that the 14-year-old had said that he was barred from going into the cabin by the 16-year-old, and he heard a fight going on, chairs being thrown. He tried to go into the cabin, and he was denied entry by the 16-year-old. So it certainly sounds like then the list of suspects is very small.
And just to take that one step further, Kenneth, if it seems the only other place you could go is the 14-year-old, right? Like, and I'm putting it out there because if this case goes to trial, there will be a defense. The defense could be mental disease or defect. The defense could be they didn't prove it. The defense could be somebody else did it. So if we're looking at somebody else, the only other place they could go is the 14-year-old, right?
Absolutely. Now, the report that she went out and was gambling on the cruise ship and then returned back to the cabin, that's new information to me. But nonetheless, there are cameras on this corridor, and if somebody else had gone to that cabin, they would have appeared on that camera view.
Yeah, so Tony, looking at it, the 14-year-old, it seems a lot of information seems to come from him. Mm-hmm. We've watched so many trials through the years. I mean, to me, you never know exactly what a defense will be if there is a defense, right? If there is a trial, if he is accused in the end. But that seems to be the only plausible person, if you're going to point a finger somewhere, would be the 14-year-old. And I'm not indicating that he did it. I'm looking ahead to what it might look like inside of a courtroom.
You'd also then have to ask, though, what was going on with the 16-year-old? Was he unconscious if you were going to go down that route? Or was he aware of something that would be? I get what you're saying. There's 1,000 possible areas where that could go. But, as of right now, we just don't know. But that would literally be the only other possible, plausible destination for this Choose Your Own Adventure book.
Yeah. And that leaves us into another world, Kenneth Gray, which would be some other type of defense. Again, it could be a mental defense, right? That's always possible. But if it's more traditional, like self-defense, is there a way to determine by looking at the room, the forensics, the autopsy, if a self-defense is even a plausible explanation for what was going on in that room?
Well, he could certainly try to raise that, or his attorney could attempt to raise that as a possibility. But, he would have to be able to convince a jury that what he is raising is a plausible explanation for this. I think that likely that he will claim self-defense at this point. I doubt that very seriously.
And Tony, if in fact there is this argument and this fighting, to me, understanding the genesis of this conflict will be crucial to really get to the truth and understand it.
Yeah, any sort of pattern of behavior that can be shown is going to be the linchpin for this whole thing. And that testimony, if the ex-boyfriend's statements are true, pretty damning for what we're looking at here.
Yeah, Kenneth, I'm trying, from the beginning, we've all been trying to understand how this could happen within a family and within people that are so young, but it's a blended family. From your perspective, for the FBI's perspective, how much time, energy, effort goes into that part of this investigation versus, manner, cause of death, potential weapons, etc.? How much is geared towards understanding any potential conflict between these two?
So you want to build a total picture of the people involved. And we know from the ex-boyfriend that he had seen the stepbrother on top of Anna, and that was threatening to reveal that to the family. And so we know there is a history there that he's obsessed with her. And so building that total picture will help make an explanation by why he may have attacked her inside this cruise ship room.
Yeah, and Tony, we've been talking about him a little bit tonight. Made a big splash when he spoke outside of the memorial because it was the first time everybody was like, wow.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts about the ex-boyfriend and what he described in that interaction? Because it's to me, again, that gets to the bottom line here. If he saw that and that happened, it seems like there should have been some reaction to that. Something should have changed inside of that household dynamic if that in fact happened.
You would certainly think, I mean, his testimony in that parking lot was extremely raw, extremely real. He had nothing to gain out of sharing all of this. In fact, he puts himself in kind of a precarious spot legally. But the fact is, he said those things, and if they do turn out to be true, it's extremely powerful. And I think could be the haunting voice of Anna that comes back to save the day here. In terms of getting justice.
All right, big thanks to Tony Bruschi. Hidden Killers, check it out, folks. Kenneth Gray is going to stick around. Coming up next, why hasn't the 16-year-old stepbrother been arrested?
As far as you know, is the only suspect in the death of Anna, your son, correct?
The disappearance of Mother Anna Walsh.
Her husband now charged with her murder.
All eyes on this accused killer.
Mr. Walsh was suspecting his wife of having an affair.
It's a massive trail of evidence.
This incredible timeline of Google searches.
It shows everything that was in his mind.
He searched how long before a body starts to smell.
The disappearance of Anna Walsh murder trial. Live coverage weekday mornings, 8, 7 Central on Court TV.
There's apparently an FBI investigation ongoing that the mother took the two younger children on a cruise, and that the older child, who's approximately 16 years of age, is a suspect in the death of the stepchild, an 18-year-old daughter that was in the same room.
That's Anna Kepner's ex, his attorney, in a hearing, a custody hearing, talking about what happened on the cruise ship. Because Anna Kepner's stepmom's in the middle of a custody battle involving her children with her ex. But obviously this is a big issue in that litigation. Let's bring back in Court TV Field reporter Cody Thomas. All right, Cody, so what we just heard that lawyer say, he's a suspect. Well, who exactly is saying that this 16-year-old stepbrother is a suspect?
Well, Vinny, the short answer is there are a handful of people calling him a suspect, including his own biological mother, along with some law officials, as we just heard. Take a listen to this, and a fair warning to our viewers, we have muted the suspect's name because he is a minor, so there's nothing wrong with the televisions. We just have to drop his name since he's younger. Take a listen.
With regard to Connor, I know you were questioned about him. He's not a suspect, or you haven't been advised by anyone?
Correct, he's not a suspect.
As far as you know, is the only suspect in the death of Anna, your son?
Correct. So as I'm looking at the motion, the paragraph specifically that the court will address would be related to paragraph 7. The 16-year-old child is now a suspect in the death of the stepchild during the cruise.
There's a young lady who's passed away. That matter is still under investigation, and the remaining 16-year-old is now a suspect in that case.
There is currently an FBI investigation as well with regard to the 16-year-old. The FBI has cleared my client from any wrongdoing. She's not considered a suspect in this matter at all.
So, Vinny, for those of us keeping a tally here, that's the suspect's own mother, that's the judge, and 2 attorneys that are calling him the suspect. Now, in a previous divorce hearing, Anna's stepmother's attorney acknowledges the fact that it could be either the FBI or the state of Florida who charges this 16-year-old, which is a huge differentiator here. Take a listen to this. And again, we've dropped the suspect's name because he's a minor.
There was an incident on the cruise ship. The Federal Bureau of Investigations is investigating that. There have been no arrests made yet, but since my clients were advised that he was a suspect in that, after he was released from the hospital upon the return to the United States, he was placed with a relative of the mother's.
How long is he expected to remain with the relative?
At this point, we're not sure. We're not sure what the FBI is going to do, whether he's going to be charged federally or whether they're going to turn it over to the state.
So, Vinny, FBI or the state, that's a huge difference. And of course, we're still waiting on more developments on this case, but it's quite possible that this 16-year-old might have a long, long road ahead.
Absolutely. Cody Thomas, great job. Thanks so much for all your help tonight. And all of this, you know, everyone's saying he's a suspect, specifically saying the 14-year-old is not a suspect. No one else had an opportunity. That brings us to the final question in our investigation this hour. Why hasn't the 16-year-old stepbrother been arrested? Joining me, criminal defense attorney, former district attorney Matthew Mangino, and still with us, retired FBI special agent Kenneth Gray. All right, Matthew Mangino, what are your thoughts here? Why hasn't there been an arrest yet?
Well, Vinny, I think there are layers of complexity here that authorities have to work through. You know, first you have to take a look at maritime law. There are specific laws for criminal conduct that occurs in international waters. You have the FBI who's taking a look at this, local authorities in Florida and in Miami who are looking at this, and there are different ways of dealing with juveniles who've been charged with the crime, depending on whether it's federal jurisdiction or state jurisdiction. Now, we know there's no death penalty for juveniles, and life without parole can't be mandatory for juveniles any longer. But it's not often that juveniles are charged on the federal level. So there's a system for determining how you proceed there, whether as an adult or in the juvenile courts. And the same thing in Florida, whether the prosecutor decides to do a direct file to adult court or to proceed in juvenile court. So there are a number of layers here that have to be worked through. So I think authorities are moving cautiously so that they don't have any long-term problems with this case.
Kenneth Gray, Matthew's laid out very well the legal nuance involved here and some of the different aspects of that. I want to look at the evidence with you. In terms of the evidence, is there enough to arrest him? And does the fact that he's not been arrested tell you that maybe they don't have any sort of a confession here?
Well, I'm sure that they have not gotten a confession yet, because if they did, we probably would see an arrest. But I think that there's a possibility that there may be evidence that is being processed still at this time. Her body was concealed underneath the bunk. There may have been touch DNA that was potentially there on the items that was used to conceal it, and that takes time to process. So it may very well be that there are pieces of evidence that are being processed that has delayed impaneling the grand jury and going ahead and getting the arrest warrant out of a grand jury.
And Matthew, as you look at this case and you try to figure out how it proceeds, if in fact they believe he's the one that did it, they believe they have the evidence and they're going to make an arrest, what do you think is the way that makes the most sense for it to proceed? In what sort of jurisdiction?
I think the wisest thing would be if this case was handled through the state of Florida, because they deal with these types of cases. This is a homicide, but they also deal with juvenile cases on a regular basis. There are ways that prosecutors are familiar with the process of direct filing and proceeding against juveniles who've committed serious crimes like this. And there's also, the idea that it's established by statute there, the penalties with regard to life in prison. That you can get life without parole, but it can't be mandatory. So you might be limited to a 40-year sentence in the state court. So they deal with this regularly, and I think that would be the way to go.
All right, Matthew Mangino, Kenneth Gray, great to have you both aboard. Thank you so much. We'll see you again soon. This investigation will end, and when it ends, there's going to be an arrest. But where it goes from there, like we've been discussing here, is still a mystery. What will the charges be? Will it be murder? Will it be manslaughter? And where will the case be tried? Juvenile family court, adult criminal court? Will it be in state court? Will it be in federal court? These questions may be the most important yet. I'm Vinnie Politan. We'll keep digging for the answers as the investigation continues.